Hello and welcome to the Women's Natural Beauty Conference, where we're having a new conversation around beauty inside out. And I'm here today with one of my new favorite people. Her name is Liz Bentley. Welcome, Liz.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm really excited to have this conversation.
Me too. I've been looking forward to this conversation. And, Liz, I have to say, I was really drawn to you because you are a business coach and there is this whole other side to you that's like in the realm of behavioral science. And so there seems to be a part of you that really gets into these deeper layers, which is absolutely perfect for this new conversation around beauty that we're having. So I'm so glad you're here. I've been looking forward to this. And let's jump right in, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, cool. So first, just tell us, Liz, what is your background and what do you do and how did you get here?
Okay. So I have an executive coaching company and I started it about 12 years ago. And originally I was an athlete. Let's start there. I was an athlete in college. I played 2 Division I sports. Both teams were top 5 in the country. I played soccer and lacrosse. And I played very seriously most of my adolescence. So I had a lot of great coaches and I learned a lot about performance. And from a young age, I was trying out for teams and knowing how to get into the mindset of what you needed to do to, succeed or achieve under stress and pressure. And, when the going gets tough and the games in a critical moment. Right. And that is the kind of the beginning of understanding performance and like what you need to do. And then I was a psych major in college because I liked the study of human behavior. But after that, I went into media and I worked in television and then I worked in magazines and I ran a sales team and did a bunch of stuff. And then I actually stopped working and I was a stay-at-home mom and had 3 kids. And when I had my 3rd kid, I was like, okay, my brain, I love this job, but my brain is definitely needs a little more going on. And at that point, executive coaching had picked up some momentum. So when I was graduating from college, like I'd never heard of anything like executive coaching. But at that point, I'd heard about it. So I was getting interested. And there was a great program at NYU in coaching. And I went and got certified in it in organizational development and executive coaching. And then kind of the rest was history as far as like getting into it, loving it, developing a business and studying people and coaching them. And now I have a number of coaches in our company and we work across the country and I speak on human behavior trends and practices that we see work and I study it. I study what works in people and what makes them function and all that.
That's amazing. And when you say that, I think, well, yes, of course. How could you not study humans and coach them? Like they kind of go hand in hand. Like when you're working with people, to really know how people work is so beneficial.
Well, I almost study them accidentally. I mean, I do right. I've done well over 10,000 hours of coaching. And so when you're coaching all day, hour after hour, you just see trends and you make observations and you see what works and you notice differences in sex, in generation, in personality, in behavioral style. Like you just start to see all these things come together. And you start to get to the root of things and understand them. So so that's kind of that's where it all kind of formed.
I love that. And why did you create your coaching company?
Well, I created the company because my individual coaching practice just grew more than I could handle. And the business just grew and grew and grew. And then I had more clients than I could coach. And so I got more coaches and the business was just going across the country. And so we expanded out of need really and out of growth.
Yeah, so, that's amazing.
Yeah. And we want to offer coaching to everybody. I mean, I could have just rejected clients and said, no, I'm full, but I want everyone to kind of have a chance to grow. And people all of my coaches practice what I call like the Liz Bentley principles. They all practice under my philosophy and the things that I've learned and with their own style, of course, but under, the things that I've researched and seen to be working.
Awesome. Yeah. And given that you have so much experience studying people and behavior, I'm very curious, what is natural beauty to you?
So, you started by saying inner beauty versus, I don't know if you said versus outer beauty, but I'm going to use your word inner beauty because I want to go in that direction for a second. So one of the things that I uncovered in coaching people is that they go through two journeys in their life. They go on what I call their outer journey and what I call their inner journey. And your outer journey is the stuff that happens to you on the outside of your life. It's like your clients, the weather, your family, your whatever, your car breaking down. It's things that happen on the outside of your life. And then you have what's called your inner journey, everything that's going on the inside of you, how you're processing your emotions, how you feel, where your mindset is, what you're really thinking when someone's talking, okay? Everything that's happening on the inside of you, okay? And so when we're coaching people, we can give all kinds of great advice, go left, go right, do this, do that. And that's outer journey advice, right? And that's great. That sounds great. Like you can do so well with advice until you can't, okay? And when you can't, it's because you're stuck on the inside. And that's why we have to go in to help people grow, right? And I'll give a very basic example of how this works. I have amazing advice on how to lose weight. And my advice works on everyone in the entire world. Every single human will lose weight if they follow my advice. And it's the simplest advice. All you have to do to lose weight is eat less. Nothing else. Nothing more than that. It works on everyone. There's no one in the world who doesn't lose weight if they eat less. No one. And yet, why is that advice so hard to take? Right? Why is the diet industry so incredibly complicated when the solution is so incredibly easy? Because it's not actually about food, right? Losing weight is not actually about food. And that's why people can't really lose weight when they struggle with it. I mean, if it's a really challenging issue, if you're someone who can lose weight and doesn't have an issue with food, you just stop eating so much and you lose weight, So that's an easy example of what I'm talking about. So now you said, what is natural beauty? Let's go to that question. So how you look on the outside and how you feel on the inside are incredibly connected, right? Just like our coaching. Right? So natural beauty is probably a lot more about how you feel on the outside, which gets exuded, on the inside. How you feel on the inside gets exuded on how you show up on the outside. So beauty comes from the inside to the out.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way that you put that. I like that. And
right.
And so what I hear you talking about too is mindset. So how a person is thinking about themselves or seeing themselves is something that gets exuded on the outside. And what we're thinking affects our actions. That's kind of the connection that I'm making. So tell us, how is mindset related to natural beauty?
Well, I'd say it's even deeper. Mindset's one thing. We can't always just shift your mindset because it's how you feel. It's like we can tell ourselves all day long anything we think we should tell ourselves, but that doesn't mean we feel it. So often, in order to help somebody feel beautiful inside their body, they have to feel whole and they have to feel like they're a beautiful person. And whatever that means, because beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, right? It's it's not something anyone can judge. It's in fact it's much less physical than people think it is. Okay, so and that's what we're talking about, natural beauty, because beauty is really like how you look is really comes from the inside of your body to the outside, right? And all the time. And so to conjure that in your body, to bring out that natural beauty, you have to really feel that way about yourself. And the reason why I moved away from the word mindset, because I could say, well, it's mindset, but mindset's something we can kind of shift. Sometimes, like I just like self-limiting belief, just like tell yourself a different story. That works within reason. But what I found, what really works, what's sustainable is healing the pieces inside you that feel disrupted, that make you feel unattractive.
Mm.
The pieces inside you that make you not feel beautiful, that make you feel ugly,
Mm.
that make you feel, like I said, unattractive. And a lot of those things can be related to feeling liked or feeling loved or feeling good about yourself or whatever it is. And that's why so many people struggle with their appearance, because it really has nothing to do with what their appearance is.
Mm. Yeah. And when you're talking, what I'm hearing, or I'm actually thinking about, for so many of us, this idea of self-love, I think of us as little kids and how, we are all born free. Like none of us are born with self-doubt or, I think self-doubt is probably one of the biggest ones. Guilt, shame. We're not born with that. That's not our natural state. And what happens from when we're a child up into, our adult years is we get stuff. Like we get stuff through our experiences, we get stuff from other people. And I'm hearing you say, yeah, this goes deeper than mindset. These are actually, things that we've inherited, maybe even into our nervous system. They're somehow imprinted into us. And so we get to go into these deeper layers to heal, so that it almost, like, I'm visualizing it opening up a new pocket of space for this self-love that we're talking about, this confidence, aligned action and things like that.
Well, now I would go a little bit into, let's say, the outer journey and say, okay, well, so first we have to let's combine both things. So we start as a child, like most of the imprinting we get between age 2 and 6 is really powerful in our life, and it imprints into our body and kind of tells us a lot about who we are and, what our messaging is. So between 2 and 6, are you told you're beautiful, you're smart, you're athletic, you're powerful, you're annoying, you're frustrating, you're small, you're tall, you're big, you're small, you're powerless, whatever you're told during those years are really imprinted in your body. And then, there's a lot more that happens throughout your childhood that imprints into you. And for every human, there are going to be good things and bad things. There are going to be things that were really magical and make you and are your superpowers. And there are going to be things that were really damaging that you have to heal. And as an adult, it's your job to heal those things and get over them. Okay, that's your job. Now let's go into the outer world. So we're young and we're being imprinted on how we feel about ourselves, which is going to exude in our beauty, right? In the inside of our body. And then we go into the world and we test all that out. And this is called usually teenage years. I've got a lot of teenagers right now who are all testing this out. But also then it goes into our 20s and our 30s and our 40s, and we test out our life. And that's when now we're going into the outer journey. And here's where we work on stuff. And we're going to get feedback. And some of it's going to be good and some of it's going to be bad. And that's where we have to adjust. That's where we have to take note. That's where we have to evolve. And that's where we have to then check back into that inner journey. Does this make sense? I think I'm amazing at this, but the outer world is telling me I'm not. So who's true and who's not? Am I right? And they just haven't seen how great I am yet? Or do I actually have some work to do here? And maybe I'm not so great and I haven't quite figured it out. Right? Or I just need to tweak, or I just need to evolve. Or am I telling myself that I'm not so great and the outer world is telling me I am so great, but there's a discrepancy. So we have these discrepancies all the time. And how do we hurdle them? And how do we evolve? And what I find is the people who struggle the most with making that evolution are the most afraid. They're the most afraid that if they look at their true self, they're going to find out that they're not all they're cracked up to be. So let me explain that deeper. We've all heard of imposter syndrome, right? This feeling that, oh, I'm, maybe I'm not as good as everyone thinks I am. I would almost go the opposite. I think that most people visualize themselves as better than they are. They like to look at themselves and deep down inside, they think like, oh, but I could be so much smarter and so much richer and so much thinner and so much more attractive and so much more, they're visualizing the next level of their life as something, but they're afraid of really putting their heart into trying to get there. Because if they work really hard at it and they fail, then maybe all that's not true. Maybe none of that's really going to happen. Right? So rather than do that, they come up with other things. Well, I just have self-limiting beliefs, or I don't think I'm that really that great. Anybody who's come to me and said, well, I really doubt myself, or I really don't think I'm that great. When I dig down deep into it, deep down, they're like, no, no, I am good. Deep in there, right? But they bring all those other things out so that they don't have to take the risk and try really, really hard. Because when you try really hard and you fail, which is going to happen, you're going to try really hard and you're going to fail. Then you have to meet your maker. You have to look and say, well, maybe I'm not all that great. Maybe I do have to really, maybe this is really hard. Maybe I'm not going to make it. Now, just so you know, I believe everybody can make it. I do, but you just have to dig really deep for it.
Yeah. And what I like in what you're saying is there's this piece of radical honesty. And part of growth is stretching. And you're talking about taking risks and stretching and becoming someone who is good at, X, Y, and Z, maybe the thing that they're not so great at now, but when we stretch, when we take that risk, that's when we give ourselves even the opportunity to learn
and grow.
Yeah.
And you started by saying something about, self-doubt. Why do we doubt ourselves? Well, I mean, sometimes we need to doubt ourselves and sometimes we don't. And we need to measure which one it's going to be. But we have to have faith inside ourselves that we can, that we can overcome anything by working hard enough, growing and learning. And I think sometimes people use self-doubt as an excuse. So they don't have to try really hard. So they don't have to do that growth. So they don't have to learn, because it's easier to kind of play the victim, to say, well, I'm afraid, or what, and also people are afraid of not being liked, afraid of pushing up against norms, afraid of speaking their truth. But that's just fear. That's not self-doubt. That's just fear. Because almost always we have to do something hard before it's going to get good. And people are afraid of doing stuff that's hard. So there's a lot of storylines they create that they hear other people create. Oh, I don't put myself first. I put others first. That's not really true. No one ever does that. You put yourself first, but you just, made other people happy so they would like you. Or whatever it is. There's always, it's always survival of the fittest to some degree. We're all selfish human beings. Otherwise we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't make it. That's the core of evolution. It's not a bad thing.
Fascinating.
It can be hard.
Some level of self-preservation.
It's all self-preservation. All humans. I've yet to meet a human that's not selfish first, ever, ever, in my more than 10,000 hours of coaching. And they are supposed to be. Some people might have a bad association with the word selfish, but every single human is selfish, looks to serve themselves first. Even if they're doing something nice for someone else, it's so that they can look good. I mean, I'm not saying we don't do things without just pure good intention. You might do something really nice for your neighbor, your child, your best friend, with no expectation of return. And the reason you do it is selfish, because it makes you feel great just about you, and it makes you happy.
Yeah, there's sort of this, what I'm hearing in there is this giving to receive, actually. And this is one of the laws of the universe is, the more you put something out, the more the universe can give that back to you, kind of a thing. And I get what you're saying too, because there's also, we all have egos. We all have that part of us that it's what gives us strength. It's what gives us fire. It's what gives us that confidence. And so, that's kind of what I'm hearing in what you're saying.
So what I would say for women especially is them to find their power. And in their power is a lot of their beauty. And in their power, they want to find their feminine power, or whatever power it is that makes them feel great. But it's in being a woman. Now, and that's a significant distinction, because a lot of women historically have seen power as coming from men. And so in many cases felt like they had to act like men to have power. But you don't have to act like men at all to have power. Women can be completely powerful and beautiful in that inner beauty, stepping into their femininity or whatever version of life they want to be in. but it feels good and unique to them, and they're being who they are and no one else.
Mm. Yeah, and I know a big part of your work is teaching effective communication. And so will you tell us, what does effective communication look like for women who really want to step into their power? And what does that give to us?
So I don't see effective communication being different between women and men, just so we're clear. I think it's kind of the same. I think it's just, being able to be clear in what you're actually trying to say. Um, and speaking your truth. I think the biggest mistake that people make is they confuse topics. First of all, I think everyone can communicate easily when the conversation is simple. I think when communication gets challenging, when we're trying to communicate something hard, right? When we're trying to communicate good news, hey, let's go to lunch, that's easy, right? That's not too hard. If we think asking you to lunch we might get rejected, then it could get hard. So it's always about, communication is always challenging only when it's about communicating things that are difficult. And so for each person, I think they have to look at how they can communicate clearly when that type of communication is hard for them. And everyone is different about it. Some people are too direct, and so it's hurtful. Some people aren't direct enough. Some people avoid the conversation altogether and allow things to brew. And so kind of effective communication is very stylistic according to each person, and comes down to where you struggle the most and how you overcome that so people can hear you and really hear your voice in it. Because I definitely see people also, feel like, well, they weren't listening. And I always say, well, if someone's not listening to you, then how do you need to speak differently so that they do listen? Like if you're not being heard, that's on you, usually, right?
Yeah.
Or some dynamic has to shift.
Yeah, which is great, which means that it just goes to show how powerful of a tool our voice is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, nowadays it's also in your writing, because you email, you text, you Slack, there's, it's a lot of your communication is written too. And that's the same thing. You can be very powerful in your writing so that people can hear you. You don't want to spend the first 3 paragraphs describing something that's not your point.
Yeah. And would you say that, when it comes to someone who's learning effective communication, whether it's with themselves or with others, I heard you say it's about speaking your truth. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of times when people are speaking their truth, it can feel edgy. There might be lump in the throat, butterflies in the stomach. And so is, effective, would you agree that effective is not always the same as perfect?
Well, definitely effective and perfect are different. I think the most important thing in understanding speaking your truth is don't speak with judgment. So if my truth is, I really can't stand you, that's not really my truth. My truth is, I really struggle when you speak to me like this, right? So my truth isn't, I think you're mean and hurtful. And I mean, that might make me feel that. Or my truth is, when you speak like this, it makes me feel like you're trying to be mean to me and hurt me. Not, I think you're mean and hurtful. Because maybe they're not mean and hurtful. It's only how it makes me feel. Doesn't mean necessarily make anyone else feel that way. Right?
Yeah.
Or maybe they're just really frustrated and angry, and it's not about being mean. It's about just trying to get me to hear something I'm having a hard time hearing. I don't know. So we have to remember, first of all, that speaking our truth is about our version of it. Now, speaking with perfection, I mean, that sounds a little bit more about giving a speech, but if you're trying to deliver a hard message, what you want to make sure is that people walk away understanding what you were trying to say. So I always say, like, if I interviewed the person after they talked to you, what would they say they heard? And was that what you were trying to say?
Yeah, that's great. And, you are in your work, Liz, you coach many leaders, and I'm sure you coach them on leadership. And so what can women learn about leadership? Like, what do you see as the biggest pitfalls, and where's the opportunity for women to step into their leadership?
think a lot of women struggle with what I call past conditioning. And past conditioning is how you were raised to believe you were supposed to be as a woman, as opposed to what's effective. And so some women were told, you shouldn't be too aggressive. You should be well liked. You should go along to get along. You should be submissive. It's inappropriate to ask for your needs. You should put others' needs in, and all these things that we know don't make sense. And by the way, men have past conditioning too. They're told you have to be brave and you can't be weak and you can't show vulnerability, like all things that don't promote growth. So for women to step into their power as leaders and really lead, they have to make sure they get all of their past conditioning out of the way, because that doesn't make sense anymore. And then they have to really embrace, their magic, like who they are, whatever that magic is, because we're all different in what makes us a unique leader. Embrace that and really lean into it, and not be afraid. Not be afraid of the heart, not be afraid to make the difference, and like I said, really step into their feminine power, because femininity is very powerful, and it's great female leaders. You don't have to be a man to lead. That's probably one of the most important things. You don't have to be masculine. You don't have to act masculine. You don't have to do anything masculine for that matter. You do have to make hard decisions and call people out and, be powerful. But none of those qualities are necessarily masculine. None of them. Right?
That's great. Way to flip that on its head. I think every woman listening right now probably needed to hear that.
Because it's not, right? Decisiveness, being commanding, influencing, whatever, being in your power, those are not masculine qualities. Those are just qualities. And you can be very feminine in all of those qualities, right? And you can be masculine in those qualities. Right? So it's, I think that's a really, really important point. I think that women also use it as an excuse sometimes, because they'll use the excuse of, well, I'm just not, I just think I don't want to be too aggressive. But it's not about that. It's about being influencing. It's about being commanding. It's about having your voice heard. It's about making a difference. If you're working from a place of meaning, don't you want to be heard? Aren't you here to show up for something big? I'd like to believe everyone is here for a big life, whatever that life is, even if its impact is in a very subtle way, but it's making a difference, right? That everyone's life is here to make a difference.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Now, Liz, if you could give one piece of advice to women who are on this path of natural beauty, what would that be?
Know that there is no limitation to your beauty at any age or any stage of life. It is all just about how you feel about yourself. And that's it. And no one in the world gets to judge that, only you.
Powerful words, Liz. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, no one gets that privilege, only you. That's really the truth in it all.
Wonderful. Now, Liz, I know you have a very generous gift for our viewers today. Will you tell them what it is?
Yes. So I have the 10 ways to find your inner beauty, and there are 10 tips on many of the things that we talked about today, and how you reach for that person all the time. So if you follow these 10 tips, your whole life is solved. I'm just kidding. But the only trick in this, some of them are hard to live by. But if you live by these 10 things, you will really always live inside your inner beauty, which again is always controlled by you and nobody else.
Wow, very powerful. Thank you so much, Liz, for sharing all of your wisdom today. What an honor and a pleasure.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. And I love this whole program, and I think it's great. And I think this is a really important topic for everyone to hear, women especially, and men too. So
yeah, thank you. I could not agree more. And for
Yeah.
those who are watching today, thank you for being here. I want to remind you that there's still time to get lifetime access. So you get access to all the interviews, all the bonuses, and all the freebies for only $47. And stop wondering if you're worth $47. You absolutely are. So click the link in your email to get lifetime access. And be sure to click the link in your email for Liz's amazing gift. I have no doubt that it will change your life. So once again, Liz, thank you so much for being here. Liz Bentley, everyone. And this is the Women's Natural Beauty Conference. We're having a new conversation around beauty, beauty inside out. I'm your host, Amy Heilman, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.
Thanks, Amy.